So after I made my ranking your guys' comic suggestions video, I noticed there were a few suggestions for a Batman Robin. And so in my head, I was like, which one? There's kind of a few. There's Batman Robin, that's an ongoing right now. There's Batman Robin Year One. And let's not forget about Batman Robin, where it's not even Bruce as Batman, it's Dick Grayson. So after looking at all of these, I was like, I'm just gonna read them all and compare them in today's video. So now I do want to make a little bit of a rule. This is just comparing Batman Robin comics that have Batman Robin in the title. So I won't be looking at like Detective Comics 500 through 800 or something, or the Solo Robin series from 93 or something. If it's not specifically a Batman Robin title comic, I won't count it. Mostly because I only got a week between each of these videos to read all of these comics, and trying to find everyone's favorite Batman Robin moment from every solo run would just take forever. So now that that's out of the way, hey, my name's Alex. I just started reading comics about 6 to 8 months ago, and I'm still learning a lot. Suggestions are always welcome, as always, so feel free to leave a comment with those. If you want to see a specific video or just want to tell me wrong and I have no clue what I'm talking about, you can also do that too. Oh, and of course, if you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. It really helps. I really appreciate all the support you guys have been giving. Yeah, it's just been really awesome. I appreciate you guys. So I'm not going to rank these in any order though. I'm just going to kind of talk and discuss in the order that I read them in. And when I post my part 2 of ranking your comic suggestions, you'll get to kind of see where they sit comparatively to other comics that you guys have suggested. So starting off strong, going into this Batman Robin Year One, I was mostly looking for an on-screen, or rather on-paper duo of Batman and Robin working together to stop crime. And this comic really did it for me. Spoiler alert, I'm a simple guy. It doesn't take a lot for me to like a comic, but I love this comic by Mark Waid. Now, there are some things that he's written that I didn't particularly like, or I guess just weren't for me. However, this comic is like my definitive version of an early Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne's partnership, and I absolutely love it. Like, it's so peak. Compared to some of the other Robin stories, I really appreciate the challenges that Bruce faced, such as like the doubts from Gotham CPS about whether he truly is a suitable father figure or it's just a big PR stunt from a playboy billionaire. I also like the dynamic of dealing with a child who's eager to get out on the streets, especially since Dick doesn't fully grasp the real danger and the risk that he could pose to others. As for Dick's struggles, he deals with the pressure of kind of living up to the new standards while coping with the recent loss of his parents. And on top of that, he's trying to connect with Bruce, which everyone knows it's really hard to connect with that guy. He doesn't connect with anyone. He's got like Alfred, and that's it. But trying to connect with him is feeling impossible. And on top of that, he wants to impress him to prove that he's good enough to take on this role of Robin. But honestly, I could go on about this comic forever, but I kind of want to keep this one spoiler free as much as possible. So if you want to read it, I definitely recommend reading it. Two-Face is one of the main villains. So is Grimaldi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but whatever. Oh, and the introduction of Clayface is really cool. I haven't seen this version before. I really like this origin for him. But overall, seeing Bruce and Dick grow as partners and develop a father-son like bond was really perfect. So if you haven't read this, please read this. By far my favorite Batman Robin story right off the start. Now, next on the list, this is kind of like a cool one that I didn't realize what I was getting into as I started reading it, but this is Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison. It was a cool shakeup because I didn't read what this was about. So when I realized it was Dick Grayson as Batman and Damian Wayne as Robin, I was like, that's really cool. But I also hate Damian Wayne. Well, not anymore after reading some of these, but at this point, I hated Damian Wayne, to be honest. I think he's a bratty little kid, and I only really know him from the animated movies, and he's so annoying. But getting into the comic, though, after Bruce's apparent death, Dick takes up the mantle, and right away, the dynamic is really different with these two. Dick isn't really that grim, imitating version of Batman. He's a little on edge because he's taken up the cowl, unfortunately, but he's a little more expressive and a little more human, I feel like. Then you got Damian. Like I said, I have words for this kid. It's Bruce's son with Talia al Ghul, who was kind of forced into this role of Robin. He's a little arrogant. He's a lot arrogant, but he is trained by some of the top assassins, so I guess that makes sense why he's like that. But yeah, he's not very likable at first. Kind of thinks that he deserves a cowl more than Dick Grayson does. So right away, the energy is not great. There's a lot of back and forth between these two. And I think one of the best parts about this run is that formula. Instead of the dark, brooding Batman and wisecracking Robin, it's more of a pleasantly emotional, open Batman with this violent Robin, and it's kind of a new dynamic I didn't know I needed. Both characters feel really three-dimensional. They mess up, they argue, and they grow. Dick isn't perfect under the cowl, and we all know he doesn't want to be there. Damian definitely isn't ready to be a hero yet, but is working towards it. But watching them figure it out together is really something I just didn't think I needed, and this is a really cool run to me. And I feel like a huge highlight is Damian's development, though. Dick takes on a near impossible job of on doing years of assassin training. And it's definitely not instant, it's gradual. I only read the first 2 volumes, so I can't really say anything past that. But just seeing them kind of evolve from an entitled lethal brat into someone who actually understands and wants to be a hero, I feel like is the reason why it works so well is because it's Dick as Batman and not Bruce. He kind of talks to him like a bigger, older brother, and I feel like he really believes in him. And then there are the villains. The series doesn't really play it safe. You got Flamingo. I've never heard of this character. He is an absolute freak. And then this weird, chaotic version of Red Hood and Scarlet, which I feel like is a gross mischaracterization of Red Hood. I don't think Jason Todd would bring in a sidekick, to be honest. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, being that he knows the traumas that he went through as a child, and then go bring a child into that same environment that he hates. I feel like that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And then also the whole like dyeing of the hair thing and like him having to be a carbon copy of Dick Grayson, and that's what Batman wanted. I feel like that's like Batman is an insane person. Like he's clinically insane. He dresses up like a bat and beats people up. Like, but I don't think that Bruce Wayne would have been that fucking off his rocker. But then there's Professor Pig, who's genuinely terrifying. And the whole Dollatron body horror thing is really fucking disturbing. I don't like the mask thing. They're really creepy. But yeah, Morrison somehow is able to balance these kind of dark, twisted villains inside of a world that is still kind of colorful, slightly absurd, still feels kind of like almost Silver Age kind of wackiness sometimes, but not at the same time, if that makes sense. But I feel like it's a perfect tone for this kind of comic. The art is something that kind of had to grow on me over time. I didn't really like it. Frank Quitely is an artist that I'm trying to warm up to because I think he's also the artist for All-Star Superman. I could be wrong, but it's just not my favorite art style. It's kind of lumpy, but it's definitely a really good read, and I highly recommend this one. Now, the next 2 comics are comics that I didn't know I needed, but it's the Robin and Batman run by Jeff Lemire. I think it's Jeff Lemire. I could be wrong. The story basically follows Dick Grayson in his early days as Robin, super eager, super talented, but definitely not ready for the weight of what he signed up for. He wants to prove himself to Batman immediately, but that confidence turns into recklessness, and that's where a lot of the tension comes from in this one, I feel like. Bruce is definitely intense and very overprotective, which makes sense, and is not exactly great at communicating, so naturally they clash a lot. I think one of the coolest parts is Dick slowly figuring out who he is, like working on his own costume and trying to step out of being Batman's sidekick. I feel it kind of plays into the early notion that he will be separating himself in the future, and I like that foreshadowing. But you can really see the transition from kid partner to actual hero, and when he gets introduced to the Justice League and meets all the teen sidekicks, expands his world quite a bit, and he realizes he's not alone in this, and it kind of gives him confidence to stand outside of Bruce's shadow. And without spoiling every little detail, the emotional payoff when Dick ends up being the one to save Batman, not just physically, but emotionally, forces Bruce to confront his own walls. And that's the hardest story. It's not about crime fighting necessarily. It's about Bruce learning to open up, even just a little bit, because of this little kid that refuses to give up on him. And I feel like by the end of the series, it makes it clear what Robin actually represents. Dick Grayson is hope. He's like the light in the world of Batman when he only sees constant darkness. The whole message about humanity, friendship, a fond family, it shows someone as broken as Bruce Wayne can heal at least a little bit and let people in. And more importantly, that Batman just doesn't tolerate Robin. He kind of needs him. And then also for the art of the series, it's literally just perfect. I really, really like the art style. At first, I was like kind of turned off because it was so different, but the watercolor style and kind of the eccentric way of drawing the figures in this was really cool, and it definitely grew on me. And you see this again in Robin and Batman Jason Todd, which is the sequel to this story. I feel like this is also an emotionally deep 3-issue run, and you can see that he's already battling some pretty heavy stuff as like a 10-year-old. And when he takes on like low-level heroes, he loses it and almost crosses a line that Batman says you can't come back from. And you could definitely tell that Jason's anger is very different from Dick's. It's very raw and very personal. And early on in the series, both Batman and Alfred pick up on this and have some tense chats about whether Jason is fit to be Robin, and did they make a mistake by letting him don the mask? By donning the mask? I think that's fine. Yeah. I also like the little bit of a relationship that we got to see into in issue 2 with Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. It was kind of cool to see Dick kind of come in as the older brother and try to help out Jason, but obviously he turned him down. He doesn't want to be the next Dick Grayson. He wants to be his own man. But the thing is he's being reckless and he's really hurting. And and has now turned away another hand trying to help him out. Then he comes issue 3, where everything kind of lands emotionally. Alfred says one of the most important lines in the series, telling Bruce that having a family doesn't make him weaker, it actually makes him stronger. Bruce is freaked out by bringing kids into this fight. It puts him in a lot of danger, but Alfred completely flips the idea on its head. In issue 3, I won't talk too much about it, but basically Jason kind of joins up with a bad villain guy and is going around kind of killing off people. But what I love is, like, towards the end, instead of letting him go down like a darker path, I like that Batman's optimism kind of brings him out. Like, no matter how furious Jason gets or how close he comes to crossing that line, Bruce never gives up on him. And he really believes that Jason can turn things around. And I feel like Jason's realization hits hard. He admits that he is afraid of Batman, not because of Bruce might hurt him, but because Batman actually sees the hero that he could become. And I feel like that's just so deep. Bruce doesn't just see a broken kid from Crime Alley, he sees potential. This belief is ultimately what stops Jason from taking out a drug dealer when he gets the chance. And I won't talk too much more because I don't want to spoil the rest. This was a good Jason Todd representation, I feel like. We don't have a lot of those. I haven't read too many, but I do know that Red Hood gets shit on all the time, unfortunately. So this was kind of cool to see him characterized properly, I feel like, but also not to the point where he's just a full-on edgelord. So it was definitely a good comic. Not my favorite compared to the first one. I think the first one's a little bit better personally, but I'm also a Dick fan. You know, I love Dick. The opening pages feature a really uncomfortable portrayal of Vicky Vale, and it already kind of sets the vibe in a strange direction. It's over the top, it's awkward, and honestly kind of creepy of her just talking about wanting to get Bruce pipe the whole fucking time and then just being sexualized for like the whole first 8 pages. But I could get past that. Now, where things really go off the rails is instead of Bruce Wayne compassionately adopting Dick Grayson after his parents die, this version straight up kidnaps him. No heartfelt speech, no gentle mentorship. He just abducts a grieving child and drafts him into a crime-fighting war. And it's kind of framed as this intense, gritty, but it kind of comes off as like unhinged more than heroic and just like edgelord. I don't know. And there's a line, everyone remembers it, when Dick understandably asked who Batman is. Are you stupid or something? Obviously he said something else. Who the hell do you think I am? I'm goddamn Batman. That moment basically defines the whole fucking book. Like, it's aggressive, it's bizarrely mean-spirited, and completely lacking in compassionate that I associate with Batman. The whole series leans hard into the hyper gritty and just parody level version of this character. Instead of a wounded, noble vigilante, he seems unstable, cruel, and emotionally detached. Now, after reading like the first couple issues, I had to look at what people thought. And some people read it as satire and kind of say it's actually a funny book if you read it like that. And others see it as a complete misunderstanding of a character, which I fall more on that side. Either way, it's one of the most controversial Batmans that has ever been published, apparently. If you're looking for a heartfelt, dynamic duo origin story, this is not it. If you're curious about one of the strangest, most talked about interpretations of Batman ever put on paper, you might like this. Actually, you probably won't like it. You'll probably just read it for the shits and giggles. But one thing I wanted to point out was, while looking at other people's comments on this, came across a Reddit thread, and somebody basically asked if this comic was worth the read. And this comment tells me everything I need to know without reading the rest of the book. Like I said, I read like maybe the first 4 issues. A couple of the points that they pointed out in this comment was Batman saying that he spent the first year of post-parent murder living in a cave and eating rats, forcing Dick Grayson to do the same. Batman constantly calling Robin stupid. Goddamn Batman. That one's killing me. Batman fantasizing attacking the Middle East with the Green Lantern ring. I don't even want to ask. Wonder Woman being a raging sexist feminist calling men sperm banks is honestly hilarious. And Wonder Woman being a raging bitch who needs Superman to put her in her place. Then there's Vicky Vale in lingerie for the first 3 pages talking about how she want to fuck Bruce Wayne, which I talked about earlier. Joker fucking his lawyer and then killing her with his tie. Interesting. Joker never smiling. I never got to this part, obviously. That makes 0 sense. And then him having a Chinese dragon tattoo sounds sick as fuck. I'll have to go find that. That's cool. What an interesting comic, truly. I don't know how to feel about this one. Yeah, I'll probably never read this like ever again. It was pretty shit. Maybe if I'm really feeling low one day, I'll read through it. Now, let's take a closer look at the first 2 volumes of Batman and Robin from the New 52 era by Tomasi and Gleason. This series is back with Bruce Wayne as Batman and Damian Wayne as Robin. And like I said earlier, Damian Wayne is cocky, ratty, annoying little guy, raised by his mom, Talia al Ghul, with an insane amount of assassin training for a 10-year-old. But I feel like this series kind of focuses on softening him a little bit more, and this reverses a lot of the hate that I had for Damian Wayne originally. Like, just in volume 1, right off the start, Bruce tries to share the anniversary of his parents' death with Damian, who just kind of shrugs it off, showing that he doesn't really care, and at the same time kind of sees it as like death is death and people die, like that's just what happens, and basically telling him to get over it. And it kind of shows how closed off he is. And at the same time, the main villain of the story, his name's Nobody, turns out to be a guy named Morgan that is from Bruce's past. Kind of goes on a killing spree, trying to lure Damian onto his side. It feels very Jason Todd-esque, you know, like in the Robin Batman Jason Todd series, where he kind of coerces Damian to stay on his side, to see like that killing is the right way to do it. Damian Wayne kind of plays along with it to try to outsmart Nobody until he dumps a guy into a vat of acid, and then kind of things go sideways, and now he has to be rescued by Batman. And after a really intense battle with Batman, Robin, and Nobody, kind of comes to a big bang at the end with Damian Wayne killing Nobody. And I don't know if this is like a New 52 thing, but it was a little cringy the way that he kind of was like, oh, forgive me, I've sinned kind of thing. But that might just be like a thing of the era, you know, or like the time. But honestly, really made me rethink how much I hated Damian Wayne in this volume. A really good story. I would like to read the rest of this at some point, but I got other ones to read, unfortunately. And for the next Batman and Robin, we have Batman and Robin Eternal. If you're in the mood for a big Bat family story that drives deep into the legacy and the whole Robin experience, Batman and Robin Eternal is really awesome. It's an event that really delivers. The plot follows Dick Grayson as he kind of uncovers a conspiracy connected to a new villain called the Mother, who has ties to Batman's early days of crime fighting. The series really mixes present day action with like flashbacks to Dick's first year as Robin, shedding light in how Bruce trained his partners, whether that training really helped them or hurt them. As things unfolded, nearly every key member of the Bat family gets kind of pulled into the mix, which is really fucking cool. Making a full-on Gotham Assembly story, one of the coolest things is it focuses on the Robins in this story instead of Batman. Dick stepping up as leader feels really natural to me, showcasing why he's kind of like the heart of the Bat family, or even DC if you want to go that far. The dynamics between the Robins, especially between Dick, Jason, and Tim, add in another emotional kind of punch to it, and kind of gives the story a solid backbone. Cassandra Cain's comeback was a big highlight for me. I love seeing her, and it was really cool to see her in more stuff. She plays a central role and has some of the most memorable action moments in the series, so I really enjoyed this run. Now, this is a book I don't want to go too far into because I don't want to spoil it if anyone hasn't read it. I really recommend this run. It was so much fun to read. It was like a sweet treat. Genuinely, just so much fun. But just to touch on it a little bit, some of the deepening of the relationships, like I said, with the tensions between Dick, Tim, and Jason, plus Harper's relationship with Cassandra Cain, just a really deep story, and finally get to see into that trauma that all these Robins had to deal with and the rest of the Bat family. But still, Batman and Robin really stands out to me as a big love letter to the Robins. It's ambitious and really character driven, packed with action. It might not be perfect, but as a big Bat family fan, it was really fucking entertaining and a cool legacy of all the Robins. And it's bold and it's really entertaining. And I just love the look at the legacy of all the Robins. Really an awesome story. Definitely recommend reading. Now for the final book in this one, it's Batman and Robin Dawn of DC era. The dynamic duo is back once again. It's Bruce Wayne and Damian Wayne. This one is after a whole bunch of stuff in the mainline continuity, from my understanding. Alfred is in there because he was killed off by Bane, I'm pretty sure. And this comic kind of shows Bruce trying to reconnect with Damian in normal ways, like living together in a smaller house instead of the Wayne Manor. He cooks for Damian, they have talks, they argue. It's messy, it's awkward, and it feels kind of real. That's honestly one of the best parts of this run for me. Another cool highlight is Batman and Robin being back in action again. Another cool highlight is seeing Batman and Robin back in action together. Early on, they take down villains like White Rabbit, showing off just amazing teamwork and that they've built up over time, kind of making them feel like they're like a true duo, which hasn't always been the case in a lot of these comics. One unexpected twist is Damian going to high school. At first, it sounds weird, but it actually leads to some really fun character growth, I feel like. Damian is totally out of his element. He's used to taking out assassins, not dealing with bullies and school drama. It gets a little messier when the principal turns out to be Mistress Harsh, who used to train Damian when he was in the League of Shadows and still kind of has a grudge against him. This kind of sets up a personal conflict where Damian has to face someone from his past outside of fighting. Another character I was kind of happy to see was Flatline. She can absorb the fighting skills of anyone who's died. It's pretty clear that she has a crush on Damian, but I'm like 99% sure that they were dating by the end of the Solo Robin series, but it's been so long since I've read it, so I'll have to reread that. Now, I do want to talk about the main villain of the early arc, and that's Man-Bat. Instead of having a monster attack, the comic kind of takes a cool twist. Man-Bat gets a cult together. His followers believe something wild. They think Batman hijacked the bat symbol and that Kirk Langstrom, the guy behind Man-Bat, is the real hero of Gotham. A really cool and interesting idea. I liked it. It feels very different from what I'm used to hearing when I think of Man-Bat. We also meet a new character named Shush. At first, she seems like a mysterious villain trying to pull the strings of Gotham and weaponizing Batman's symbol, but then she finds out that Man-Bat has been lying to her, and rather than fighting Batman, she decides to team up with him. This twist makes her kind of unpredictable and sets her up to be a really interesting character in the future. Now, I don't want to spoil too much of the series, but like I said, the whole idea of having Man-Bat as a cult is kind of cool, because usually, at least in the animated series, he just like flies around and does random shit and turning people into bats, and it's like, why? But this one feels a little bit different, and I enjoy that. Another interesting part of this is the return of Bane. After the events of City of Bane, Damian finds out from nobody that Bane is still alive, and guess where he is? Dinosaur Island. When Batman and Robin get there, they discover Bane is battling a group called the Cobra Cult, who are trying to make a new version of Venom using dinosaurs, which is also just kind of a fun, interesting take. And it was cool to see them face off against these new challenges that I never really thought I would see them doing. And I really enjoy the series. It's the current ongoing, and I've been reading it. It's a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend it. Anyways, that's all for today. If I missed any other Batman Robins, just let me know, and I'll add them to my next video. I really appreciate you guys watching. And like I said in the beginning, if you're enjoying, like, subscribe. Peace.